Yeah, there's just one here, look. Or one here. Right, folks, we're on our way, we're on the way. We're on the way, Tom. Thank you, Harry.
You're welcome.
Get them in order, definitely. Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
Maharaja.
thank you all for coming once again. I was just telling Dave here, our speaker, you know, he's been here before, mind you, so he's used to it, but it's great that we sit here for half an hour, twiddling our fingers on this and whatever, and no one's here. 12:25, the place fills up like that, you know, so we totally rely upon you and your support, which we greatly appreciate. And I'm sure the man that's going to appreciate it most of all today, beyond us, of course, is Dave Hacker. Dave, in my note to you all, I put that Dave is a current member of the Windlesham and Camberley Camera Club, which I am, Alan is at the back there somewhere.
Have you paid up?
I did. You should read your emails, Mr. whatever your name is. But he has been a member for donkey's years. He moved home in recent times. He now runs his own formed camera club in Sunningdale. Maybe Dave is well travelled, brilliant photographer, and I'll say no more than that and let him take over on the.
Thank you, Mike. Before I start, let me do a quick sound check. Can you all hear me okay? At the moment, that's good. And Mr. Cameraman, are you right in the back there? Okay, all right. Well, thank you all for giving up some of your lunchtime to come and hear me talk about the Maharaja's Express. I just want to make it clear, this is the Maharaja's Express, not the Marrakesh Express. That is in Morocco. It is a real train and also known of a song. I'm not sure that anybody has made a song about the Maharaja's Express yet, but there's always time. Okay, I'm going to split this talk into three parts. The first part is about the journey on the Maharaja's Express on the thing called the Panorama route. I hope that'll take about half hour or so. I have been given one or two might need to leave. Fine, as you wish. But also the second part is going to be a little bit of an extension to that when we went up to Shimla. And that was subtitled, What Can Possibly Go Wrong, which is a bit of a spoiler for what might come. And then there is scope for a bit of a Q&A at the end. Now, before I also carry on, has anybody here been to India? Quite a few. I had to twig that earlier on, and I thought, oh my goodness me, there's an expert here. So for your sake, please apologise for my pronunciation, because it will not be very, very good. It'll be my best effort, so let's go. All right, we're going to take the Maharaja's Express. So we decided to take this in January last year. We thought January is a good time, it won't be too hot. We all know what hot's like last few days. And we thought, okay, we'll avoid the heat, but also we thought we had a good deal because we knew that the first part of our journey was going to be in India on the Maharaja's Express. And Anne, my wife, was a little bit nervous about going to India. And we said, well, we'll make up for it by going on a luxury cruise afterwards. So that could be scope for another talk as to what could possibly go right. But anyway, let's see what happens. I got some notes here because there's quite a lot of detail which I want to try to get right. But this is the route. Obviously, this is India, and we're going to go up into this area, up into the northeast India. We're going to fly into Delhi. The train is going to take us around to Jaipur, Ranthambore, round to Sikri, through to Varanasi, and then back to Delhi. And as I said, for extra time, we had a separate journey that took us up to Shimla.
If you want a pointer, there's a pointer on that little handheld thing there. Oh, you've got one, okay.
Point there? Yeah. Sometimes I like to actually point directly, but... So what were our first impressions? Having had this long flight from London into Delhi, now you arrive off the aeroplane, you're all a bit sort of jet lagged and a bit stiff. And the first thing I saw was this, a group of 4 people huddled under a patio heater. And goodness me, I thought this was India. What's going on here? This didn't make sense to me. And that set the tone for the whole holiday. And we'll come back to this in the next few slides. As we boarded our bus or coach to take us to our hotel, again, you drive down through the roads and you see a lot of these things. These things are roadside vendors. I think these were packets of crisps. And clearly he was quite well, had a good stock to back him up. And he was quite busy trying to get even more stock on his bike. And for those of us who don't know about bicycle and bicycle law, this was not uncommon for a pedal bike to have baskets on the front and on the back and things all over the place on the bikes. As we got close to the hotel, we also on the street corner, a lot of these little side restaurants, people selling whatever it was, some sort of curry or some food or chapati or whatever, and they were always busy, but, and that was another characteristic, there's always people hanging around in India. The next thing was, this was about 100 yards from the hotel. We turned around this corner and saw this goat herder. And we thought, well, I thought we were staying in a 5-star hotel. I mean, it's not a series of 5-star mud huts, is it? But anyway, so those were our first impressions of India. And later that afternoon, we set out to do our first set of sightseeing in Delhi. And this is where I need to get my notes going. This is Humayun's tomb, which is built between 1565 and 1572. It was 9 years after the death of the Emperor Humayun by his chief consort. So there's a message there for you guys. Your wife might want to build a tomb in your honour later on, if you're lucky. It was considered to be, or is considered to be, the first garden tomb in India, and it is a World Heritage Site. And although it's 47 metres high, 97 metres wide, it looks immaculate until you get close to it. But it's just a stunning piece of architecture. Now, it does predate the Taj Mahal, which inevitably we will see later in the talk, and it has been argued or suggested that this actually was the site that became the predecessor or the inspiration for the architectural design of the Taj Mahal. It was quite busy, but the joys of Photoshop, I've been able to get rid of most of the people from the picture, which was a good, I think. The central architectural feature of Delhi, and I get confused between Delhi and New Delhi, and I hope you can explain to me later on why there is a difference between the two, because they are quite different parts of the town. This was the India Gate, which is built by Lutyens. It's also known as the India War Memorial, and it's got the name of over 13,000 names on it, of Indian and British soldiers who actually lost their lives in the Afghan war. It's 42 metres high and is actually quite an impressive building and provides a central point for a lot of tourism in India, both international tourists and Indian tourists. It's also highly significant because the president visits it every year, and there's a big military parade which took place 2 days after we were there. And you could see a lot of security was in place as we drove around, and you could see the streets had been cleared so they could have their military parade, which was televised. And it went on for about 6 hours as things, tanks, transporters, people just marched past. In the centre, it's a tomb of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. It's his memorial. He's an Indian nationalist who was a key figure in the independence movement, which a gentleman I never heard of before, but to have his tomb in a very prestigious place was quite important. Traffic. No one's heard the stories about maybe of the traffic in India. It was manic, and thank goodness I'm not going to even attempt to drive in this town. This was just outside the India Gate, looking out the window of our bus. You can see we've got cars, motorbikes, tuk-tuks, taxis, and other things. And here's some of the tuk-tuks we see on the side of the road, and with the bicycles. It looks quite orderly at this point, which it was. But of course you get these things. You get cows. Cows will appear on the road, and they can go in any direction they like. So you could be driving in this way, this cow's going in the opposite direction. And of course, hit a cow and you're in real trouble. So you just have to be wary of it. And you come into a junction, and everybody seems to be going in their own direction. This guy on a bicycle, I think he's got this as a mattress on the back of his bike, and he's going against the flow of traffic this way. So you've got these bikes, these tuk-tuks, the cars, the vans, and it's a real art form to drive, and I'm very appreciative of our driver. But we're here to talk about the Maharaja's Express. It is a train that is being created in the 2010s. It tries to recreate the aura, the image of when the Maharajas had their own carriages. So what they tried to do was to recreate, even perhaps rebuild some of the original carriages. In our terms, the train is pretty long, 23 carriages. It has 14 carriages for guests of 84 people. I think we had about 60 whilst we were on the train. 2 dining carriages, a lounge carriage, a bar carriage, and so on. The Maharaja Express does 4 different routes around this part of northern India. We were on one called the India Panorama. Life on board the train, well, as I mentioned, some of the carriages were very plush, they were recreated. This is one of the dining cars, one of the 2 dining cars. It was beautifully presented and was probably architectural, was probably one of the highlights of the way the train was. We had a very good barman here, Namaste. He was very helpful. He could always whip up a drink of any type you wanted, whenever you wanted. A key figure, inevitably, on board the train. And for those of you who like cooking, this was the galley car. It didn't look very imposing, but they were able to whip up all sorts of meals from this thing that was lurching around on the rails, because the railway tracks weren't the most smoothest you've ever been on in the world, but they were still amazing what they were able to do on board the train. One of our first sites to visit on the train was Jaipur. This is the Jaipur City Palace. Now, Jaipur was founded in 1727 by the Maharaja Surrey Singh, and as part of a major redevelopment of the city. And the palace has been continually updated, and it comprises of several courtyards. I thought it was beautifully presented and quite an imposing building. But it's not just a royal palace, it is actually a centre of arts, has temples, rituals and worship. Now, Jaipur is also known as the Pink City, and it was painted pink by Maharaja Surrey Singh II to welcome Prince Albert in 1876. And pink, I understand, symbolises hospitality and warmth in the Indian culture. It was a very impressive building, and inside one of the courtyards was a little small temple, if you like. And in the temple, middle of it was, you might see an outline here. It is through a plate glass window. This is one of 2, there are 2 of these, silver urns. They claim to house 4,000 litres of water, solid silver. Obviously, these 2 gentlemen here were the guards, trying to protect it, make sure no one put it in their back pocket and walked off with it, as if you could. And it was also mentioned that when one of the Maharajas came to visit the UK for the coronation, he actually bought that for the Ganges water. Now, why you want to bring Ganges water is something which I need to have to explain to me, because the Ganges water, as we'll see later on, isn't the cleanest of water in the world, but that's what he wanted to do. And this was our guide. Beautifully dressed, very dapper, lovely moustache, and his English, old boy, was splendid. Absolutely word-perfect English. Better than what we speak now. I mean, he really was very good and knowledgeable with that as well, very personable. And he managed to control us as we wandered around our various sites. Because later on that evening we went to the Amber Fort. I believe it's also called the Amber Fort because of the colouring, but it's the Amber Fort, which is about 11 kilometres outside of Jaipur. It was built over 2 centuries, from about the 16th century onwards. However, there is evidence that the site was occupied, maybe as a fort, for about 1,000 years AD. This is another site in Jaipur called the Palace of the Winds. Now, I took this picture at night because in the daytime it looks a bit flat and boring because the light is so bright on it. At night it's beautifully illuminated and becomes quite interesting to look at. Now, what is it? It is really an extension to the royal palace that we saw just now, but built really for the ladies of the court. And it was built in 1799 as an extension, and it was designed to allow the royal ladies to observe what was going on in the street below without being seen. So there are about over 950 odd windows in here, each quite small peepholes, so the ladies could look out and they could observe the goings on in the street. Which leads me on to my next slide, which was some of the goings on in the street. This is where a demonstration meets a wedding. It's almost like 2 forces clashing. The demonstration, we understood, had just passed through, but it was a group of Hindus who were complaining about, a group of Muslims who complained about a new Hindu temple that had been built on a Muslim temple, which had been built on a Hindu temple over the years, And it was all very confusing as to who did what to whom, but it was a very joyous, exciting activity for them all to go out and start shouting and chanting about their views about what should have been built on what. But next door to that suddenly was the wedding party came through. I was on the wrong side of the coach, so I can only get the back side of it rather than hopefully see it coming towards me. But that coach is just there. So it managed to force its way through the people. And of course, some of these people here in yellow were part of the wedding party. So who did what to whom was all a bit confusing. But of course, you wouldn't have a procession without a brass band. A lovely oompa band here, marching down the street, leading through the wedding procession down the road. Great fun. Okay, let me have a quick drink. Anybody been on a tiger hunt? Did anybody see a tiger? Yeah.
We were with someone who had been there 5 years running and never seen a tiger. So.
Okay, well, you read the punchline. You can see from this picture at the background, it's a bit foggy. A bit foggy. You can see this thing, like a big Land Rover, had no roof on it. And you can see we had blankets on. And you know about wind chill, the faster you go, the colder you get. Well, our driver was probably the cousin of Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton. And there's about 5 of us, and 5 of the GP things in convoy. And we started off with blankets on, hats on, gloves on, another blanket on, and we still, not just because the car was going so fast, but he was doing silly speed. Luckily the roads were empty, but the wind chill just froze us, and we arrived at the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve, absolutely frozen. And yeah, I'll move on from the cause of nature. That may have been required, but these things were diesel engines. Now, a rattly old diesel engine isn't that the quietest of vehicle, and the roads weren't very sort of smooth as you go through the reserve. Bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. From 5. Now, in my view, any self-respecting tiger would have said, "Blow this again, my monkey. I want to find some peace and quiet." So why am I going to be sitting here? And we couldn't see them because of the fog. Yeah, so what do we see? These chicals, we saw quite a few macaques. And the only tiger I saw was this one, a painted tiger on board the train. So we had a manic drive back to the train. Thank goodness there was a hot toddy or two to welcome us back on train. So sadly, the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve wasn't the greatest of successes.
Coming up 10 to 1 day.
Okay, fine, thank you. I've got a clock here. From Fatpur Sikri. The city was founded by the Pathans, an Iranian ethnic group from Afghanistan in northwest Pakistan. And they built the Mughal architecture. And this is one of the Mughal cities. It was actually only was in use for about 5 to 10 years. And this is really is the main sort of one parliamentary type of building in there. And this building here, this is the inside of it. And it's alleged that this is where the Mughals sit up here with these 4 ministers on each corner. And he discharged justice as the supplicants came through here to actually plead their case. It was again another nice site, been beautifully presented. They had baths and temples and other forms of accommodation for people. Well, you can guess what that is. We had a formal dinner at the Rambler Palace Hotel, so we had to get dressed up in turbans. We had a formal dinner on board the train, and Anne got dressed up in a sari. And here was me, dressed up, practicing my dance routine for the disco that night, which is called Changing the Light Bulb moment.
Do they provide that?
Yes, they provide that, and I was going to wear it today, but I was told not to.
We wouldn't mind if Anne wore
You would have
hers.
probably appreciated that I haven't, actually.
I couldn't possibly time mine.
And as we all know, this is the Taj Mahal, and I'm sure many of you have either seen it in person or seen photos of it. And I do have to admit, the sky was like that. It was just an appalling sky, sadly. But the building, as we know, is very impressive. 22,000 labourers were involved in building it. Work started in 1631, was completed in 1648. It was commissioned by Shah Khan for his wife Mumtaz Maharaja. Apologies for messing that up. But it was a blend of Islamic and Indian architecture, and also a hint of Persian architecture in as well. There was a lot of jewels embedded in the stonework, and I think you've got to see it to believe it. The pictures, I don't really think it ever do it justice. You just got to be there to see it. And it is a very popular site and therefore very, very, very busy. Moving on to Ocha. Ocha was a village up in the hillside we went to see. And this is not my tuk-tuk. My tuk-tuk, again, was driven by Lewis Hamilton. Now, it was a new tuk-tuk, and I would love to see tuk-tuk racing at Brands Hatch, because I think it'd be a fantastic sport, and these drivers are naturals. They drive these things like lunatics, but hey, it was safe and fun. But it was a good day out, but again, misty. This was the Orchard Fort, but sadly, once you see one fort, they do tend to look very similar to another fort. But again, our guide was very busy explaining what the elephants meant and what this meant, what the carvings meant, and it was fascinating. But you do get to a phrase, I'm afraid, it does wash over you a bit. But we went to the village. Some of you may have seen one of these pictures before. We went into the elder's hut, and this was these two ladies making chapatis on an open fire, which was interesting to see. Out in the courtyard, his daughter or granddaughter suddenly appeared, modernist. There's a lovely attire. But again, as I said earlier on, everywhere there were people smiling. One of the characteristics, everybody was smiling. And this mother was proudly showing off her daughter. We went into the schoolroom and spent half an hour teaching the kids English, probably. But they were all happy and joyful to see us. But then suddenly, Johnny Bravo appeared, not a very happy little boy. But again, he just had to be taken a lovely photograph to me of him. Throughout the village, again, there were people hanging around. I'm not sure what they were doing, but obviously warming their hands in the cold. The cow, right in the town centre, he was there. I hope he wasn't licking his lips at me. He certainly was seeing there could be something tasty there. Just down the road were these ladies going into the local river to do their laundry. Lucky they were upstream from these three who just came out and who had done their early morning ablutions. Doesn't look very warm, does he, poor chap? Heading back towards the train, there's always another train nearby, and India is renowned for a lot of people on board the trains, and these three could have been freeloaders, but they're obviously looking to get the best of the train. Meanwhile, back up on the train, it's a different life story, really. Another glass of champagne. We come to Kajiro, and we were greeted by these artists doing this acrobatic work, and suddenly a cow appeared, completely impassioned and enjoyed what was going on. We were then going to go on to see a group of temples, Hindu and Jain temples. Now, I have to give you a warning before I show you the next slides. The temples are renowned for a set of friezes that surround the temples. And there are two temples, identical apparently. We only went to see one because once you've seen one, you've seen them all. So this was an excerpt of some of the temples, or the friezes around the temple. And you thought, oh, okay, this is a bit fruity. Oh, a bit more. And a bit more. Now, bear in mind, John, no, you no, it's right, the glass is all right, okay.
Just adjusting the focus.
Okay. We then went on to Sarnath. Now, Sarnath is famous because it's where Buddha gave his first speech after he gained enlightenment. And this thing called the stupa was built in his honour to remember that momentous occasion. Sarnath became a town full of architectural interest, but it was lost when Buddhism started to fade. But for about 500 years, it was a very, very important site of learning and a religious activity. Moving on to Varanasi, we sort of start to head our way back to town. This is on the Ganges, and everything was just built right on top of the river. And we were now on board a ship to go down the river for an evening cruise. And we weren't really quite sure what we were going to see, what we were going to do, but we sensed we weren't alone. We sensed there's a whole flotilla of boats heading in our direction. And then suddenly we stopped at this site here, where I know you probably can't see it too clearly at the back there, but there was 5 Hindu, I call them Hindu monks, who were chanting and singing, and had been doing it already for about 3 hours, and would be doing it for another 5 hours. And the place just packed full of worshippers and onlookers. What was going on? It was quite an experience, but some of it was perhaps washed over us. But it was there. It was. There were big TV screens up on the wall here, so people who couldn't see what was going on the stage here could actually have a better view. But another point of Varanasi, of course, is where they have the cremations, and a very serious part, obviously, for the Hindu in their religion. And at this point, there were a number of funeral pyres going on, and that's what the glow is all about. It's a bit sordid, so I'll move on. That night, we had a blood moon to help us back towards our train. So we returned to Delhi, and a few views of the train before I end round 1, or part 1. It's very, very agricultural, but still very poor. And these people just trying to scrabble whatever existence they could from the local land. A lot of people are just sitting around, huddled up to keep warm, just watching the world go by. But great from a photographer's point of view, because they're always very photogenic, these types of characters. Some guys don't have tractors, some guys have to rely upon the original box cart. A lot of these adobe bricks around being built, never quite sure what they were used for, because I can never see them being used, but there are thousands of these bricks being built. So that's the Maharaja's Express. Now I did say I'm going to do this in 2 parts, and I know somebody said you have maybe a bit of time constraint. This is the time to have a quick break if you want to move on. But I prefer not do another 10 minutes on the train up to Shimla. I'll carry on, but if that's fine. No, it's absolutely, it's fine. This is subtitled "Whatever Can Go Wrong." We knew we were going to go to Shimla as an extension to the trip, so we had a very early morning start, like 4 o'clock in the morning, and we discovered once we were on board, we had a 7-hour journey on board the coach. And when we got to a place called Kalka, which is where we were going to get the train up to Shimla, we had about an hour and a half's wait for that. That was okay, but this is the train journey we're going to go on. All you need to see on this map is that it's lots of squiggles. It's 60 miles long, it climbs about 2,000 metres, 102 tunnels, 864 bridges, and it's got a steady gradient all the way. So it's going to be an interesting journey in that respect. But most of our party thought, we're going to give you 5 to 10 minutes upon this train. They thought it was going to be like a toy train ride. What they didn't realise, it was 5.5 hours. So here we are. So we're at the station. Here's the locomotive coming to join the train. Here's Anne looking very excited and expectant, because she was aware that the train journey wasn't going to be 10 minutes. I had forewarned her. And here was our party getting ready to settle down on the train. I might point out the upholstery. It's about 1.5 inches of foam.
You were lucky.
We were lucky, because the first class carriage didn't have that. We had curtains, but not that. Then we saw the guys come around checking. This is the wheel tapper, and that's a golf club. And I thought, well, the way I'm playing golf at the moment, that'd be far better job for me to be a wheel tapper using that than a proper wheel tapper. And then you see these cases, and we thought our cases had gone on ahead. And then I realised on the writing, these weren't going to be our cases. This was just there for decoration on the platform. And then being a bit of a train nerd, I looked round the side of the carriage and I saw this sign on the carriage. And it said ball and sausage packing. Now, I've no idea what that meant, so I tried to research it to find out what it might mean, but I've no idea. But what I did read was some of these things up here. The train was disinfected in March 23. Encouraging. The toilet was last flushed. Do I say March 23? Anyway, so there we go. So this is the train ride. As you might expect, lots of twiddles and turtles. It was very bending. Did have some nice scenery, but 5.5 hours is a long time on board the train. Again, more smiling people on the train that passes in the station. And we set off to our last stop. And then you see people having this as a wedding shoot just by the side of the railway line there. And then last we see some of the foothills of the Himalayas. London Transport has a clean outreach station here in terms of its signage. Shimla, which I will say we never actually saw, was very, but what we did see was like this. Lots of high-rise buildings just stuck on the side of the hill. We eventually arrived at Shimla station after actually 6 hours. And then we were told we had a 90-minute drive to our hotel. So we were a bit knackered to go to the point, and as we come towards the end, so another shot of some of the buildings we see around Shimla. The next morning was beautiful, clear blue sky. Wow, lovely. Now we were so tired we didn't really have much energy to do much, so we stayed around the hotel. But I had words with the with our hotel staff. He said, "Oh, sir, we haven't had any snow yet. This is January, and we're worried. We haven't had any snow." And I said, "What's going to happen?" He said, "It's going to come tonight." And it did. And we woke up in the morning to this, a blizzard. Now, this is the Himalayas, or the foothills of the Himalayas. But, and I suppose the English culture has actually spread even this far because it's complete chaos. One flake of snow and that whole thing fell apart. Our taxis couldn't get through to us. And the important point was we had to get from Shimla, remember how long it took us to get there, back to Delhi, to get up at 4 o'clock the next morning to get a flight to Singapore.
You're going back on the same train?
Luckily not. However, we waited about 2 hours whilst I managed to assemble a fleet of 4x4s. So we all crammed in the 4x4 and with our luggage around our ankles, and we set off down the road quite gingerly. And we hadn't gone more than about 2 miles, and you can't go any further, sir. Oh, why is that? The road's closed. Oh, and I taxi says, "Don't worry, I know a shortcut." Yes, you're right there. And the shortcut was an unmade road on the edge of a cliff. It was single track road, but two-way traffic on it, with blind bends. Anne had her eyes closed for the whole journey. And I think I heard prayers and it's going on all along. And as I indicated on, they don't drive slowly. So we had this hair-raising drive for about an hour, thinking, go down there, sheer rock face there. And eventually we actually managed to break out. And we did get the train back from Kalka to Delhi. And we did manage to get back to the hotel for about an hour's sleep. We had to get up at 4 o'clock the next morning to get the train. So what can possibly go wrong? It was an interesting attempt, but there we go. That was the extension up to Shimla. Let me just try and draw it together with some reflections. These are just some personal views from Anne and myself really about what we saw. India is sadly a country of those who've got it, and have got it lots, and 99.9% who've got nothing. And they're living on the breadline, or below the breadline, it's poverty. And some of the sites you see, which I did not put in any photographs, really were quite distressing. The litter around the train tracks was horrendous. And it was something which actually sort of marred the first part of the journey for us. And that's a personal view, because some of the architectural sites were actually magnificent. And it was a joy to see some of the buildings, but enough was enough. And I think from our point of view, it was an experience, and one which I should look back upon, some with sort of been there, done that. Like, I have a suit, not the t-shirt. I've got the suit which you saw me wearing earlier on, and Anne's got the sari to prove it. But for us, thank you very much, and we'll move on from there. I think at that point, thank you. It's well timed. Thanks, Phil. I should draw it to a close. Obviously, there's scope for some questions if anybody's got any questions. I know I have run through that, but it was quicker than 45 minutes I had planned, so hopefully that's all right. I haven't missed out too much.
You've done brilliantly, I must admit. So we might as well take questions if you have them. Oh, you're satisfied.
I was going to ask you, Dave, what were your, you've just given us your reflections. I was going to ask you that question anyway. You just said, did you enjoy it? Maybe you didn't say that. Did you say did you enjoy it at all?
I enjoyed it. I mean, we had to put to one side the things that weren't very, very pleasant to look at, and some of the lifestyles and could accept. It's their country, and as I've mentioned several times, so many people seem to be smiling.
Are they happy though?
Well, that's a very good question. We don't know. But when you see them, they're looking at you. And one thing I'm conscious of, with due respect, is that you tend to get told a lot of things you want to hear, and therefore you're a little bit questioning perhaps some of the things. So were they happy? Mike, I really don't know. I hope they were for their sake, because when you haven't got much, and you see these people coming dripping with technology, cameras and phones and things. But having said that, so many of them had smartphones. Yeah. So if they've got smartphones, I assume they may have access to the internet. So they're probably sitting there thinking, WhatsApping. God, we had a bunch of real snooty Americans coming in this time.
I wish we had their internet here. Because we are so backward, we just cannot believe it.
Mm-hmm.
India and Indian hospitals and so on are just phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah.
And their Wi-Fi, everywhere you go, any little hotel like this, you walk in, you've got strong Wi-Fi.
Yeah, yeah. Because one of the benefits, they've actually managed to, they don't have that legacy that we've had, all that copper, and therefore they've gone straight to what we might call 5G. But yeah, they've got some very good infrastructure.
You really said it, Go on,
Sorry.
I was going to say, do you have good food on and off the main train?
It was good food. I mean, it was a bit samey. But
Indian food or English?
English, it was predominantly Indian, but you could have had some English dishes if you wanted to. Yeah.
We haven't even got Wi-Fi in this room. So pathetic.
Sorry.
I was saying, I know the India very well. The culture is very different. The temperature is different. People starve to those places where they are more populated. Now you see the increase in the populations. Now you think about all the things happening with the birds and so on. They are religious type people. You go to like Benares or Varanasi. What is it? They go to bury their soul.
Yes.
That's how we're going to heaven. Now you think about some of the things what they have inside, and they are very, very happy, those countries. I've gone up to very high level. Those years ago with the illiteracy or different things, and now the things been changed.
Yeah.
The growth is very high.
Yeah.
Everything else, the people are more civilized. You go to some of the villages, and you're saying something like which are very cramped places. You have nothing in there. You go to villages, and you go to some of the rural areas. They are very, very happy. And I know my father, I own the land, and I work in there at the time when I was a boy. And it's one of the nicest places. We didn't have those things at the time like you think about the Taj Mahal. What is it? It's a love epic. Somebody who has a love for the lady, and that's what he made. There's something more in it, inside, and that's what is a good thing about it.
Thank you for that help. That's helpful. Thank you.
Because it is, I'm sure, well, Jenny and I, we went, and we found everyone was happy. All, they're just pleased to meet you. And you said, they are content with what they've got because they know now else, really, I guess, in a way. But
Haven't got much, but they're content.
So in other words, they indicate, they teach, and this is an educational thing for us, through you and Harry, that they know how to love one another. Not love
romantically, but to look after each other and take care of each
Yeah,
other.
that's true.
And that's something that Western countries, I think, tend to forget about. There's too much competition here, perhaps. Or, yes.
There are no care homes there. They're wonderful hospitals, no care homes.
Where?
Families look after each other.
Yes, that's all right. Anyway, yes, I think that was very educational.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you very much. Talking about religion, we've got a lady coming next week to talk about the Baptist Church. Do you know where the Baptist Church is? Not many people. Well, you just go down the London Road towards Blackwater, whatever, and there's a turning called Frimley Road after major traffic lights there. And if you turn left there to go towards Frimley, then on the left, very quickly, there is this building. My memory is that you recognise it really as a white building and white wall, and that's been there for a very long time. And so I think this will be an interesting item.
Phil, can I just say, I met this lady and her husband in the museum about 3 weeks ago. I was just chatting to her, and she turns out to be, they are both ministers of this church. Yeah. They've just moved down here about 6 months ago, and they're trying to put the church back on, how can I put it, online, back in the apparently it's a very quiet, and they had a big event just after that time I met her to promote the place. And so she said, I'll give you a talk, and she's putting one specially together for us, but having said that, I haven't heard any more.
No, I'm sure it'll be, we have talks every time which are radically different from the previous ones or from many others. But it should be a very interesting local church talk, and it should, I think, be very educational. Baptists, they tend to get forgotten, and yet the name Baptist really is one of the original ideas in Christian religion. Okay, so look forward to see you all next week. Thanks for coming, and thanks for the talk. Dave, thanks for the talk. That was really excellent.
Okay, thank you.
And, people stayed here and looked, and you obviously intrigued everyone. Thanks very much.
Yeah.